What is up, everyone? I'm Rusty, your local laboratory maniac. This is Labman EDH, where we specialize in EDH deck building and talking about commander cards. This will probably be my last, or should I say, my final Final Fantasy EDH deck build video. I've made a couple in the past. Go check them out if you're interested in this kind of stuff. I got 4 decks for you today. I picked themes that I think are pretty interesting, or just commanders that I think are pretty interesting. But before I jump into it, I just want to thank all my subscribers. If you like content like this, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and comment down below which commander card from Final Fantasy are you the most excited for. It could be a legendary, it could be a non legendary. Just tell me what you're most excited for. And without further ado, let's jump into it. So this deck is called Clerical Error, but if you make it, trust me, it will not be a mistake because it is pretty fun. Okay, the commander is Minwu White Mage. It's a 3 generic, 2 white, legendary creature, human cleric. Has vigilance and lifelink. Then whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on each cleric you control, and it's a 3/3. Now this is doing a lot of cool things. Obviously, you know I love life gain. It is doing the +1/+1 counter theme. It's doing the cleric theme. Now, I wanted to make this deck for a couple of reasons. Obviously, life gain, I'm on board. Let's go. But two, I want to kind of show how cleric should be, or sorry, tribe themes should be secondary to what you're doing. I feel like all my tribal decks are I just happen to have some creatures that all share a type and do some things with that, but that's not the focus of my deck. And that's not the complete focus of this deck. And another reason I wanted to build around this guy, his quote is, "I shall remain here and devote myself to the care of the wounded." I know you guys don't know anything about me. I'm a nurse, and when I was younger, I was in the Navy as a hospital corpsman. That's like a field medic. So that just resonated with me. So I had to make this out of respect. And so, just a little bit more on his lore. He's a white mage from the magical land of Mysidia. He draws on his vast knowledge and powerful spellcasting ability to support the rebel forces in their cause. He has proven himself a courageous ally, often volunteering to partake in dangerous missions. And of course, if you're gaining life, you'd partake in dangerous missions too. What do you got to lose? No, but anyway, okay, so like I said, a lot of people probably will go cleric with this. People tend to love tribal, and tribal's good, but like I said, it's secondary. It should be secondary to what your goal of your deck is. So you got Dauntless Defender. He prevents 1 damage to each cleric when it's dealt damage. Ancestor's Prophet. Now this guy's kind of interesting. He's a 4 generic, 1 white. He is a cleric. It says tap 5, untap clerics you control, gain 10 life, and it's 1/5. Um, you don't want to gain large amounts of life in one shot. You want to gain small amounts of life in multiple shots. So I didn't end up running him. But if you're going the more cleric route, which tribal, if you want to be dead set on that, that's fine. You're obviously going to want to put this guy. And just on a side tangent, that tap 5 ability, I've seen that in a couple things, like Skirt Fire Marshal. You tap 5 goblins, do 10 damage. Captain Invading Vampire, you tap 5 vampires, you gain control of a creature, and it just keeps going. I think Guiltleaf Archmage is the most brilliant. You tap 7 druids, you gain control of all lands target player controls. So I'm actually kind of brewing a theme around this where you make everything every creature type. But anyway, that's a side tangent. I get into side tangents all the time when building. Now I'll be building a deck, and then I'll be like, okay, I actually got to build this deck first. Then I'll come back to this deck. Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay, so one reason I really also wanted to build this deck is because I've been looking at the card Smile at Death, which is a 3 generic, 2 white enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield and put a +1/+1 counter on each of them. I actually got this in a booster pack for my birthday, and I'm like, okay, this is a cool card, and I got it for my birthday. Got to build for it. Now, we obviously clerics aren't known for their power, huge power. So it works, I guess, with clerics, but we want things to be going into our graveyard a lot. So we're gonna have a aristocrat sub theme here. And if you've never played Lifelink or played against it, basically, if someone's gaining life, people are attacking them. they can have nothing on the board, and if they have 50 life and everyone else has like 30, they're getting attacked, even though they're not the threat. That's just how it goes. So they'll be attacking you, and you'll be blocking with your creatures, and then you can easily bring them back after blocking with them. Then you got something that's similar to that with Abiding Grace. It's a 2 generic 1 white enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, choose one. You can gain 1 life, or you can return target creature card with mana value 1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, this is doing something similar. A lot of our creatures, I think like 10 or more, will have 1 CMC. And obviously, the Soul Sisters are the most important. We'll talk about them. Getting them back is essential. So, whenever you gain life, you get a +1/+1 counter thing is pretty common in white. Like I call it the Ajani Pride Mate effect. Here's a couple examples. You even got some in Final Fantasy where she has lifelink, and when you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on her. And then when she dies, put X +1/+1 counters on each legendary creature you control, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on her, and she starts as a 2/2. So you can bring her back with Smile at Death, of course. She's doing the life gain thing. You can keep sacrificing her to keep putting all her counters on your commander, for example, or any of your other legendary to just boost them like crazy. Exemplar of Light's a 2 generic, 2 white angel. As flying, then whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then when you put one or more +1/+1 counters on it, draw a card. This only triggers once each turn. It's a 3/3. It's not a cleric, of course, and it doesn't fit the 2 power or less theme. However, it is card draw. We are in white, so we're going to make use of whatever good card draw we can get. Voice of the Blessed is probably a notorious one. It's a 2 white spirit cleric, so it fits the cleric theme. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on it. As long as this creature has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has flying and vigilance. And then if it has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has indestructible, and it's a 2/2. I've seen this wreck games. It becomes a 12/12 flying vigilance indestructible creature. And then Excalibur is a Excalibur 2, I should say, is a 1 generic legendary artifact equipment. When you gain life, put a charge counter on it, and then the creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on it. It's equip 3. So this is perfect to store counters because your creatures will be removed, but this will hopefully stay, and then you could just equip it. Then, of course, the Soul Sister theme. There's plenty of 1 mana Soul Sister effects, even 2 mana Soul Sister effects. I actually used to play Soul Sisters in Modern. It's one of my favorites. I actually played it when I was stationed down in South Carolina. The group there, like 80% played Burn, and I just happened to play this deck, and I just wrecked because they, they couldn't burn me fast enough. But basically, when a creature comes into the battlefield, you gain a life, even if it's your opponent's. That's what those do. Then you got something like Guide of Souls. He gains you 1 life and an energy when something comes into your play. He's also a cleric. He has also 1 mana. He's also 2 power or less. And then whenever you attack, you can pay 3 energy. When you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on target attacking creature. It becomes an angel in addition to its other types. So it will keep the cleric type. Then Leonin Elder. It's a 1 white cat cleric. When an artifact comes into play, you gain 1 life, and it's a 1/1. So it's doing all the themes. And if someone's playing a treasure deck, you're going to be gaining so much life. This card is definitely slept on in Commander. Now, like I said, the Smile at Death and Abiding Grace bring things back to the graveyard. White is really good at that. So you got other options you can put in the deck. You got Valkyrie's Call and Enduring Renewal. Valkyrie's Call is a 3 generic 2 white enchantment. When a non-token, non-angel creature dies, return that to the battlefield under your control. And then it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. And then it has flying and is an angel in addition to its other types, of course. So something dies, comes back as an angel, and then it dies again, but you don't get it back because it is considered an angel when it dies. So it gives you basically 2 uses out of something if you're going to be sacrificing it. Then you got Enduring Renewal. This is a 2 generic, 2 white enchantment. Play with your hand revealed. If you would draw a card, reveal the top card of your library instead. If it's a creature, put into your graveyard. Otherwise, draw a card. When a creature is put into your graveyard from play, return it to your hand. So obviously this is putting things in our graveyard for us, which we love because Smile at Death will bring them back. And then when something dies, it just brings it back to our hand. And all of our stuff is cheap, so it won't be hard to cast. Speaking of cheap, we got these two guys. They're both clerics. They're both 1 mana. Allenbach, Escort. You can sacrifice it to give something +1/+1 and lifelink and indestructible into turn, and it has vigilance. It's a 1/1. So you obviously play this, give something protection, bring it back, play it, and then you also got Children of Corliss. It's a 1 white creature. It's a cleric. You sacrifice them, you gain life equal to life you've lost this turn. So it's almost like a fog effect. It is technically gaining life, so it's a little better. However, if you lose more life than you have, this won't do much because you'll die. So keep that in mind. You also have some pretty good sacrifice outlets here. You got Eldrazi Monument, which is a 5 generic artifact. Creatures you control get +1/+1, have flying and indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. If you can't, sacrifice Eldrazi Monument. So at the low cost of sacrificing a creature, everything gets flying, +1/+1, and indestructible. And hopefully the thing that you sacrifice, you can just get right back, which will trigger all your Soul Sister effects, gaining you more life, pumping your whole team. And then you got Pyre of Heroes. It's a 2 generic artifact. You pay 2 generic, tap it. You sacrifice a creature. You search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature and has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put it on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate only as a sorcery. So you can sacrifice your Soul Warden to get something that costs 2, and then you keep going all the way up the chain if you like. So it's like a tribal sack outlet here. Then you got sack outlets that protect your creatures even more. You got Flare of Fortitude, which is probably one of the best. It's 2 generic, 2 white, instant. You sacrifice a non-token white creature rather than pay this cost. Until the end of the turn, your life total can't change. Impermanence you control gain hexproof indestructible. So it's a fog plus um, uh, a hero's intervention. It's insane that it could be for free. Then sacrificing isn't really a cost if we want to do it. And then you got Duty Beyond Death. It's a 1 generic, 1 white instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Creatures you control get indestructible until end of turn. Then you put a +1/+1 counter on each of it. So it's protecting the board and increasing the number of counters that we have. Both of these are great options. They're shoo-ins in the deck. Then you got these guys. I do not see these guys played enough. If you have a token deck, you need to play these enchantments. You got Martyr's Cause, which is a 2 generic, 1 white enchantment. Sacrifice a creature, prevent all damage to a creature or player from one source. So it gets around Hexproof, gets around Shroud, and it fogs. It's amazing. And then you got Fanatical Devotion, 2 generic, 1 white enchantment, sacrifice a creature, regenerate target creature. So if they're casting Blasphemous Act and you have 10 creatures, well, you sacrifice 5 of them just to regenerate the other 5. It's perfect for a token deck. Then you got Martyr's Bond. Now, the card I also don't see played enough. This is essentially a Dictate of Erebos or Grave Pact on steroids. It's a 4 generic, 2 white enchantment. When it or another non-land permanent you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a permanent that shares a card type with it. So if they destroy one of your artifacts, they have to sacrifice an artifact. And they don't even have to destroy it. You can sacrifice your creature, and then they'll have to sacrifice a creature. It's just if it's put into the graveyard. Then you got stuff like Banisher Priest, so 1 generic, 2 white, human cleric. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until Banisher Priest leaves. So it's an O-ring effect. It is a 2/2, which is relevant. So you play this, you get rid of something that is the biggest threat at the time. Your opponent will either try to destroy this to get their thing back, or you can sacrifice it to bring it back with Smile at Death in order to get something else off the field. Then you got Defiler of the Faith. It's not a cleric. However, it lets us pay 2 life instead of paying a white, um, which means our Soul Sisters will be free. Like I said, you have a lot of 1 CMC white creatures and spells, so this is perfect. And then whenever you cast a white permanent spell, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So it's something that you can sacrifice. It'll trigger your Soul Sisters ETB abilities. It's just perfect for this deck. And one cleric tribal card I could not put in here is Battletide Alchemist. It's a 3 generic 2 white. It's a creature, Kithkin cleric. I miss Kithkin. I wish they would have brought. I wish they'd bring them back. It says if a source would deal damage to a player, you may prevent X of that damage, where X is the number of clerics you control. And it's a 3/4. I just realized this is just to any player, so I can fog damage to my opponent. I don't know why you would, but you might. Like if your opponent has lifelink, you'd probably want to fog it so they can't gain that life. Last but not least, you got the Ranger of Eos and Ranger Captain of Eos. Ranger of Eos, 3 generic 1 white human soldier. When it ETBs, you search your library for up to 2 creature cards with converted mana cost of 1 or less, reveal them, and put them into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. It's a 3/2. And then Ranger of Captain of Eos does something similar. It's a 1 generic 2 white creature, human soldier. When it ETB, search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost 1 or less, reveal it, and put it to your hand, shuffle your library. Then you can sacrifice him. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells. He's a 3/3. So the theme that these obviously are going for is the 1 CMC or less theme. It doesn't fit your cleric theme. It doesn't fit your 2 power or less theme. But getting those Soul Sisters out is going to be crucial for this deck. Nothing feels better than playing those cards turn 1, turn 2. Hopefully you get them in your open hand, but you don't always. So you get something like Ranger Captain of Eos, and you can cheat them into your hand and then play them. And that's the gist of this deck. There's a lot of themes going on. You pick which theme you want to focus on, or if you like all the themes, you can put them all in there. You got your life gain, you got your recursion, you got your 1 CMC, you got your +1/+1 counters. You can go many different ways. That's why I kind of like this commander. I'm liking all the mono white legendaries from this. But anyway, that's the gist of the deck. Let's go ahead and get on to the next one. So for this deck, I actually made it funny enough because of a meme I saw, and I'll show you that meme here in a second. It's Historic Saga is the name of this one. It's Garnet, Princess of Alexandra. She's a 1 green, 1 white, legendary creature, human noble cleric. She has lifelink, and then when she attacks, you may remove a lore counter from each of any number of sagas you control. Put a +1/+1 counter on Garnet for each lore counter removed this way. It is a 2/2. So this is doing a few cool things that I love. First of all, it's 2 CMC. You love to see that on a commander. It has lifelink and as a +1/+1 counter theme and a saga theme. Now, lifelink, obviously, I love gaining life. And also, this is kind of like a Voltron commander because it's boosting itself to be large. Also, if you're building a saga deck, you know how hard and crucial it is to be able to manipulate the chapters by putting and removing lore counters. So, this is perfect. Now, she was actually a princess. She was hiding her identity while traveling with Zidane. Garnet takes the alias Dagger, inspired by Zidane's weapon. Initially polite, soft spoken, and naive to the world outside of her castle, she loosens up during her travels and becomes more streetwise. She resolves to use her powers as a summoner to protect her kingdom and become more assertive and less dependent on others for help. Now, I really like this. Too often do we see princesses kind of be uh, like a little wrapped up in themselves. Like I was just watching Game of Thrones and Daenerys. Her whole plot line is, "Hey, I deserve to be the ruler because my dad was ruler, and I'm gonna earn that." She seems to be going the I'm a commoner route, and I like that. And I like her quote. It says, "Someday I will be queen, but I will always be myself." Love to see it. Now, this meme is kind of funny. It has the card, and then it says how to lose friends and alienate people. And then it has, what's that, like 8 sagas that exile creatures on their first ability. So if you're like playing her, you have a few of these out. you keep getting rid of the first lore counter and keep reactivating that first ability, just egg zone like crazy. Now, I don't think it would alienate people. It's not that strong because a lot of them are like O-ring effects. You'll see what I mean. But let's just get into the first two. They are summons from Final Fantasy. You got Summon Oxyon. It's 2 generic, 1 white, it has 3 chapters. The first one says exile target creature an opponent controls until this saga leaves the battlefield. And then it has 2 other chapters. They're both the same. It says put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. You gain 2 life. It's an enchantment creature, Saga Unicorn, with first strike, and it's a 3/3. This is doing everything we like. It's doing the exile thing, it's doing the +1/+1 counter thing, and it's gaining you life, just like your commander. Now, as I said, it's an O-ring effect. Oblivion ring, if you're familiar with it, it ETBs, exile something, and then when it goes away, they get that thing back. So these will be targeted, just by the way. Then you got Summon, Jimbo, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's 3 generic, 1 white, it has 4 chapters. The first one's exile target artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature an opponent controls. Its second and third chapter are the same. It says, until your next turn, creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 colorless for each of those creatures. And then its fourth chapter is create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of opponents who control a creature with power 4 or greater. And then it is an enchantment creature, Saga Samurai, with vigilance and a 5/5. So this is doing the exile thing, and then it has a weird ghostly prison. So if you want to keep it on the ghostly prison, you let it get to chapter 3, then take one off. Chapter 3, take one off, and then so on and so forth. A few more sagas that fit our theme. We got Battle of the Hellvault. It's a 4 generic, 2 white. It has 3 chapters. The first 2 are the same. It says for each player, exile up to 1 target non-saga, non-land permanent that player controls until Battle of Hellvault leaves the battlefield. And then its third ability is create Avacyn, a legendary 8/8 white angel creature token with flying, vigilance, and indestructible. So this is doing the exile thing, and then it is definitely going to be a huge target because if you exile 2 things from each opponent, they're going to kill this as fast as humanly possible. That's the thing. It's almost like a Grasp of Fate, which is like an O-ring that comes in and exiles 1 thing from each opponent. That thing is the quickest thing to be removed. Then you got Vault 13, Dweller's Journey. It's 3 generic, 1 white. It has 3 chapter abilities. The first one says, for each player, exile up to 1 other target enchantment or creature that player controls until Vault 13 leaves the battlefield. Its chapter 2 is you gain 2 life and scry 2. And its chapter 3 is return 2 cards exiled with Vault 13 to the battlefield under their owner's control and put the rest on the bottom of their owner's library. It's doing the O-ring thing and it's doing life gain, which is amazing. It does eventually give 2 things back, so you don't have to exile your own stuff, but if you don't, you're basically giving 2 things back to the opponent, so that's not the best. Now, a quick thing about sagas. Sagas add counters on the pre-combat main phase. This is a turn-based action and doesn't use the stack. You can't respond to that counter in the pre-combat main phase being added, but once a lore counter is placed, it triggers the chapter ability. So it's that trigger ability can be copied. So you won't add another lore counter by copying the ability. However, you can remove and proliferate counters and triggered abilities if you do add counters. So if you add a counter, it will trigger the next chapter, and that trigger ability can be copied. Just keep that in mind if you want to play something like Strionic Resonator. Once the saga has equal or more lore counters than the number of on the final chapter, it is sacrificed. This is a state-based action that doesn't use the stack. For example, if a third counter is put on a saga with 3 chapters, it is sacrificed, then its final ability triggers. You can't use something like Power Conduit to remove the third counter to save the saga. I've seen some people do that in a game. I didn't know the rules at the time, but for this video, I made sure to look up the rules. Now, these next 2 cards are from the Doctor Who set. They have to do with historic and sagas. So you got Perry Brown and Barbara Wright. I love how these are just like their legal names on a card. That's kind of crazy. So Perry is a 3 generic, 1 white, legendary creature human. The first historic spell you cast each turn has Convoke, and as Doctor's Companion, it's a 2/3. Historic is legendaries, artifacts, and sagas. So every time you cast one of those, you can use your creatures to pay for it. And then you got Barbara Wright. It's a 1 generic, 1 white, legendary creature, human advisor. Sagas you control have read ahead, and as Doctor's Companion, it's a 1/3. Read ahead means if you play a saga, you can choose which chapter you want it to start on. So if you have Battle at the Hellvault, for example, and you want that 8/8 legendary Avacyn Angel token, you can actually have it go straight to the final chapter. And of course, this would cause it to be sacrificed, but still, you can read ahead to any chapter you like. Like I said, counter removal manipulation is pretty amazing in this deck. You got Power Conduit that will remove a counter and it will place a +1/+1 counter on target creature, which is exactly what we want. We want to boost our commander. Then you got Pheropede. It's a 3 generic artifact creature insect. It's unblockable, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a counter from target permanent. It's a 1/1. So, as an attack trigger, or combat damage trigger, rather, and it can remove one. So, and you're also removing counters in combat with your commander as well. So, you got Scholar of New Horizons. I've talked about this card before. Basically, you can remove a counter to get a plains card, and if your opponent has less lands than you, then it goes to your hand. If they have more lands than you, it goes onto the field. Then you got Nesting Grounds. Now, this is a really good card in here because it can move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. So you can move, like, let's say you have one counter on one and 2 counters on another, and you want to move that one counter to the 2 to trigger the third ability. You can totally do that with Nesting Grounds. Now, of course, if you have an enchantment based deck, you basically know that you're set with your draw engine's going to be good and your mana is going to be good automatically. So there's multiple enchantresses. Some of them say you draw a card when you play enchantment. Some say when an enchantment goes to the graveyard, you draw. Some say when it ETBs, you draw. So you can fit as many as you want into this deck because they will always be good. And then there are some sagas that help with mana ramp. And then there's also auras that attach to your lands that help with mana ramp if that's the route you go. For the deck list down below, I did not go that route because then if someone board wipes you, you're out of luck because they just got rid of all, because they're going to be like, oh, destroy all enchantments. Oh, all your mana ramp was enchantments. You're screwed. So the Weatherseed Treaty is a 2 generic, 1 green. It has 3 chapters. The first one is you search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tap, shuffle. The second one is create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. And the third one is target creature you control gets +X/+X and gains trample until end of turn, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Obviously, we're going for that first ability to rampant growth every turn if we can, because that's just amazing value. It's easier to keep lands around than it is enchantments. And as I said, you could copy triggered abilities of your sagas because that lore counter triggers the ability. So you can do something like Weaver of Harmony, which is 1 generic, 1 green, enchantment creature, snake druid. Other enchantment creatures you can control get +1/+1, which is going to be good because a lot of your summon sagas are creatures too. You can pay 1 green to tap it, copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy, and it's a 2/2. So it just copies any enchantment trigger ability. Then you got Ondu Spirit Dancer. It's a 4 generic, 1 white creature, core cleric. When an enchantment you control enters, you create a token that's a copy of it. Do this only once each turn. It's a 3/3. So it doubles up your sagas. It's just great enchantment value. The enchantment sub theme, actually, I don't know if it's a sub theme. I guess the original theme, saga, sub theme, enchantment, it is just so supported that any deck can basically be good, especially green white. So Brilliant Restoration, it's a mass reanimation for all enchantments. Your sagas, assuming you can't keep removing counter, will eventually go to the graveyard, so you can bring them all back. Hall of the Heliod's Generosity, it's a legendary land that you can pay to, tap it, put target enchantment card on from your graveyard on top of your library. It does tap for colors too, but you can recur your sagas that way. And like I said, you are doing the +1/+1 counter thing. There's actually a lot of sagas in the if you just go to the deck list that do +1/+1 counter related stuff. So I just thought it was perfect. Now, how heavy you want to lean into this is up to you, but there are a lot of enchantments that deal with it, like Branching Evolution. It's 2 generic, 1 green enchantment. When one or more +1/+1 counters would be put onto a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. Then one card I always play in enchantment decks because it's a good Hail Mary, save all your stuff kind of thing is Remove Enchantments. It's a 1 white instant. Return to your hand all enchantments you both own and control, all auras you own attached to permanents you control, and all auras you own attached to attacking creatures your opponents control. Then destroy all other enchantments you control, all other auras attached to permanents you control, and all other auras attached to attacking creatures your opponents control. So basically, if they board wipe with something like a Bane of Progress, you can quickly do this, bring them all back to your hand. Or let's say a lot of your sagas are about to be sacrificed with their final ability and you rather keep them around. Remove Enchantment. It is a really good card. It's also like I have never actually seen someone outside of me and my play group play it. It's only $2. It was only printed in Legends. So, keep your eye on it. Get a few while it's down. And that is essentially the stack. You play sagas, you remove counters, you try to exile as many things as you can. A lot of the exile is O-ring effect, so it's not super mean because they eventually will go away and they'll get their stuff back. And you want to do the counter manipulation thing well, especially with nesting grounds. I just think that's a neat trick. You got your enchantresses, you got your mana ramp through your enchantments, especially your sagas. You're doing the +1/+1 counter thing. So all in all, I think this deck is pretty good. I don't know. I kind of want to build it just to test it out, just to see kind of how mean it is. I don't think it'd be too mean. But let's go ahead and get into the next one here. So for this next one, it actually has the same colors as the first one, but very different strategy. It's called Be the Pariah. Now, Ancient Adamantios is the secret commander. It's a very interesting card. As soon as I saw this, I had to build around it. So it's 5 generic, 3 green, creature turtle, vigilance, ward 3. Damage isn't removed from this creature during cleanup step. Then it says all damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control is dealt to this creature instead. When this creature dies, exile it and create 10 tapped treasure tokens. So it's an 820. 820. Jeez. Big butt decks are going to love this. So this is doing a lot. The damage isn't removed ability is the first time I've ever seen that on a card. I don't think there's any other card that's like that. The all damage is dealt to it instead of you or other permanents. There are a few cards that do that, and that's what the theme of this deck kind of is redirecting damage to creatures you control. The last ability isn't something we're going to be playing around. It is a nice bonus, but if it does get exiled, we have ways around that. So, Lord Tidbit, this creature is the largest and oldest living known creature to man, said to have been born in the dawn of time itself, and the Adamantios first appears in documents produced circa the advent of the kingdom of Lucis. According to said records, metal procured from its shell was used in the construction of conduits used to channel the crystal's power into the wall around the crown city. So I don't know how I see that. I guess technically it makes treasures when it dies. I mean, but other than that, I don't really see the whole flavor connected to the card, but it's such a cool card. I really don't care. So, like I said, this is Be the Pariah. You got Pariah and Pariah Shield. Both redirect damage to a creature away from you. So you got Pariah, it's 2 generic, 1 white, enchantment aura. Enchant creature, all damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to enchanted creature instead. Of course, you want to put this on one of your creatures usually. If your opponent has an indestructible creature, you can put it on that because it doesn't have to enchant something you control. Then Pariah Shield's a 5 generic artifact equipment. All damage that will be dealt to you is dealt to equipped creature instead. Equip 3. Now, of course, you can really only equip to your creatures, so that has to be on one of your creatures. But there's, of course, ways to get around that. So, 2 creatures that do something similar to our big old turtle is Veteran Bodyguard. He's 3 generic, 2 white. He's a creature human. As long as Veteran Bodyguard is untapped, all damage that would be dealt to you by unblocked creatures is dealt to Veteran Bodyguard instead. So it redirects all damage from you to it. And then Palisade Giant is probably the most similar to the turtle. It's 4 generic, 2 white creature, giant soldier. All damage that will be dealt to you and other permanents you control is dealt to Palisade Giant instead. And it's a 2/7. Now, if you have multiples of these, this is a replacement effect. You can choose how the replacement effect resolves. It won't go to both of them, but it will go to one of them. Now, there's other cards like Weathered Bodyguards. It's a 5 generic, 1 white creature human soldier. As long as it is untapped, all combat damage that will be dealt to you by unblocked creatures is dealt to Weathered Bodyguards instead. Pretty similar to Veteran Bodyguard. A lot of bodyguards up in here. And a lot of giants too, because here's another giant soldier. It's Protector of the Crown, 5 generic, 1 white creature, soldier, giant. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. Then all damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to Protector of the Crown instead. And it's a 2/5. So same thing. Now, of course, things getting dealt damage will eventually kill them. Usually, if they attack with a 10/10 and we have Protector of the Crown, that 10 will kill our giant. However, there's a lot of cards that get around this, like Oris, Semite Guardian. It's a 1 generic, 2 white, legendary creature, human cleric. Its ability we care about is the tap. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn. So, okay, you attack me with 100 damage. It goes to my bodyguard. I will tap Oris, prevent all damage that will happen to my bodyguard, keeping me and the bodyguard alive. Then you got Runetail, Kasune Ascendant. It's a 2 generic, 1 white. It says whenever you have 30 or more life, flip Runetail. It's a legendary creature, Fox Monk. It's a 2/2, and it flips into Runetail's essence. It prevents all damage that would be dealt to creatures you control, and it's a legendary enchantment. So, basically, if you play this turn 3, it'll automatically flip. It's a static ability, not an activated ability. So, not like Oris, where you have to activate it to target your creature to prevent the damage. So, that's always a plus. Then you got Bubble Matrix. It's a 4 generic artifact. All damage dealt to creatures is reduced to 0. This will obviously also help your opponent's stuff because it says all creatures. Back in the day, they used to use universal abilities, which I kind of like. I kind of like that they do that. Now it's all upside. Then you got Caduceus, Staff of Hermes. It's a 2 generic, 1 white legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature has lifelink. Then, as long as you have 30 or more life, equipped creature gets +5/+5 and has indestructible and prevent all damage that would be dealt to this creature. And then it takes an equipment of 2 white. Now, it's kind of interesting that it makes it indestructible and it prevents all damage that would be dealt to this creature because Indestructible doesn't really care about damage. However, there are, I guess, some cases that like Infect maybe that might, that might be relevant. But basically, your 820 will all no damage will be dealt to it, and it would become a 1325 with lifelink. That sounds pretty amazing to me. So, the commander is actually Shalai, Voice of Plenty. And the reason why I haven't mentioned her yet is because you can really put any green white commander you want in here. I picked this one because it gives all permanents, well, not all permanents, all creatures and myself hexproof, and it can also boost my creatures for late game value. So it's a 3 generic, 1 white legendary creature, angel, flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof, and you pay 4 and 2 green. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and it's a 3/4. There are a few other cards that do something similar, but I just chose, I like this command. I like Shalai. And then, of course, we're redirecting damage like crazy to our bodyguards, to our giants, to our turtle. And we may want to give them indestructible. And there's a bunch of ways to do that. You got Darksteel Plate is the classic example. It's a 3 generic artifact equipment, indestructible. Equipped creature has indestructible, and then it equips for 2 generic. Now, some things automatically already will have an indestructible that you might want to play. I personally love these 2 cards. I've built multiple decks around these 2 cards. I'm a huge fan. You got Stuffy Doll and Giggling Skitterspike. Now, these are both good cards, but Giggling Skitterspike, if you build around that card, which I have, I think it was a Tamir color deck, it wins fast, and it's insane. Okay, so Stuffy Doll is a 5 generic artifact creature construct. As it comes into play, you choose a player. Stuffy Doll is indestructible, and whenever damage is dealt to Stuffy Doll, it deals that much damage to a chosen player, and then you can tap it to deal 1 damage to itself. It's a 0/1. So you put a pariah shield on it or something, you take damage, it directs to Stuffy Doll. Stuffy Doll will deal that to your opponent that you chose. And then you got Giggling Skitterspike. It's a 4 generic artifact creature toy, indestructible. When it attacks, blocks, or becomes the target of a spell, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent, and then it has a 5 generic monstrous 5. It's a 1/1. So obviously, we're using this for the indestructible value, but if you do target it for an ability like redirecting damage or something to it, it will trigger its ability, and it also triggers at attack. So it's a really good late game card for sure. So, of course, the last ability on your giant turtle automatically will exile it when it dies and give you 10 treasure tokens. Now, there's some ways to get back the giant turtle. You got Pull from Eternity and Rift Sweeper. So Pull from Eternity is a 1 white instant. Put target face up card that's removed from the game into its owner's graveyard. And then of course you get something back from like Eternal Witness, you can get it back. Then you got Rift Sweeper. It's a 1 generic, 1 green creature, Elf Shaman. When it ETBs, choose target face up exile card. Its owner shuffles it into his or her library, and it's a 2/2. That's also good because we have plenty of tutors because we are a secret commander and we want to get our big turtle out as fast as possible. Speaking of tutors, you guys know the regular ones like Worldly Tutor and all that stuff. Here is one that I don't see people play nearly enough. It's Congregation at Dawn. It's 2 green and a white, instant. Search your library for up to 3 creature cards and reveal them. Shuffle your library, then put those cards on top in any order. So if you wanted, you can be like, okay, play this into my opponent's turn. Get the giant turtle, get your stuffy dog, get your giggling skitter spike, and put them all on the top, and then draw your big turtle, and then you keep drawing into really good value. And that's the gist of the deck. You basically want to make it so you don't ever lose life, have all your creatures take that life for you with pariah effects or their natural abilities, and then hopefully coast and win the game through powerful beatdowns. Remember, you got an 820 on the field, so you'll definitely do some beatdowns. Your commander will also help late game boost things, give everything +1/+1 counters. So that's the gist of this deck. So let's go ahead and get into our last one. So for our next deck, I'm calling it Feral Youth Gal. Now that's how it's pronounced according to Google, and Google's never wrong, so that's how I'm pronouncing it. So Gal is a 1 generic red, legendary creature, human berserker. It has the rage ability, which means whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And at the beginning of your each instep, if a card left your graveyard this turn, Gao deals damage equal to its power to each opponent, and it's a 2/2. So there's a lot going on here, actually. So when he attacks, not when he deals combat damage, when he attacks, he gets a +1/+1 counter. He starts at 2/2, so this first attack will make him 3/3. Not too bad. Um, but he'll hopefully get bigger as he goes. And then it says at the beginning of each instep, if a card left your graveyard this turn, Gao deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. Now, you obviously want to be either exiling cards in your graveyard through their own abilities or using artifacts to exile it. Doing graveyard manipulation in red is not the easiest thing to do. That's what kind of made me want to play this guy. And I also saw that he has some kind of cat there. Maybe it's a dog. I'm not sure. But for his lore, he actually has a really interesting story. So, Gao is a feral child that is a playable character in Final Fantasy VI. During childbirth, Gao's mother died and his father went mad with grief. He believed Gao was a demon and fled to Velt and abandoned him there. Gao grew up among the monsters of Velt, learning to fend for himself. So you got the wolf boy kind of situation, except for monsters kind of helped raise him. And I don't know what kind of monsters. I couldn't find out what kind of monsters they were. But if they look like this little dude in his art, it can't be that bad. They have a loose definition of monster, clearly. And it kind of fits with his flavor, red. He's feral. I would like him to be gruel, probably, would be kind of better, but depends what kind of monsters we're dealing with. Now, obviously, we're a graveyard theme red deck. We need to get stuff into our graveyard. The best ways to do that is wheeling and then drawing, discarding. Now, you got Big Score and Unexpected Windfall. They're almost exactly the same card. They both cost 4, except for Unexpected Windfall costs 1 red more. It's 2 generic and 2 red instead of 3 generic and 1 red. Both are instants. Both say when you cast this spell, discard a card, then you draw 2 cards and create 2 treasure tokens. So it helps with a little mana ramp as well. It is instant, so you can play it anytime, of course. And this is just a way to get stuff into your graveyard because you want to get things into your graveyard. That way, you can get rid of them. They can leave your graveyard. And we're actually going to be using 4 cards that activate in the graveyard, or 4 keyword abilities, I should say. You got Flashback, Jumpstart, and Harmonize, which both activate in the graveyard and exile themselves. And then there are some cards with Retrace, which does not exile the card. So keep that in mind. So, for example, you got Snort. It's 3 generic, 1 red, sorcery. Each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards. Then Snort does 5 damage to each opponent who discarded their hand this way, and it costs 6 to flash back. This is perfect for our deck. It's doing damage and it's wheeling our hand, getting cards in our graveyard that we can eventually exile to trigger our commander. Then you got Gravitic Punch here. It's a 3 generic, 1 red sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target player, and has Jumpstart. Jumpstart just says you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card from your hand. In addition to paying its other's cost, exile this card. Now, it's kind of like Flashback, except for you have to discard 1 card, but you want to be discarding. So both those things are good things for you in this deck. Discarding and casting from the graveyard. So you got your Harmonize card here. It is a Wild Ride. It's a 1 red sorcery. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn and haste. As Harmonize, it's a 4 generic, 1 red. You may cast this card from your graveyard. For its Harmonize cost, you may tap a creature you control to reduce the cost by X, where X is that creature's power. Obviously, we have other creatures in the deck than our commander. We'd like to tap them, recast Wild Ride from our graveyard, targeting our commander, dealing more damage when we attack, and then at the end of the turn, dealing more damage at the end phase. Okay, and you notice a lot of these flashback cards, these jumpstart cards, these harmonized cards already synergize with our commander outside of their keyword recasting cost. They're boosting, they're doing damage, they're wheeling us. So it almost works perfectly. That's another reason why I decided to build this deck. I was like, dang, this almost all just synergizes so well together. Then you got Decaying Time Loop. It's 3 generic, 1 red, instant. Discard all cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. It has Retrace. Retrace says you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. Notice it does not exile the card with Decaying Time Loop, so it won't trigger the something leaving the graveyard effect. However, it's still just a wheel that is really useful that you can, if you end up discarding it, you can use it at a later date and you can use it actually multiple times. Now, there are many ways to deal with the graveyard and things coming out of the graveyard, even in red. Red is not known for their graveyard shenanigans, sometimes with artifact shenanigans with the Goblin Welder, for example, but it is not really known for its shenanigans with the graveyard. That's something black and green and white do pretty well. But okay, so another card that you can play from your graveyard, triggering your commander's ability, is Detective's Phoenix. Now, you can actually put a lot of Phoenixes in these decks. I didn't go the Phoenix Travel route, but you could. It's a 2 generic, 1 red, enchant creature Phoenix. It has Bestow for 1 red, collect evidence 6, which won't be a problem because you have so many cards in your graveyard. And then it has Flying and Haste. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has Flying and Haste. And it says you may cast Detective Phoenix from your graveyard for its a Bestow ability, and it's a 2/2. So you can keep casting from your graveyard even if it goes to the graveyard from the field, or if you discard it. Then there's Goblin Welder. It's a 1 red creature, Goblin Artificer. You tap it, choose target artifact the player controls, and target artifact card in that player's graveyard. If both targets are still legal as this ability resolves, that player simultaneously sacrifices the artifact and returns the artifact from your graveyard. So if you are dumping stuff into your graveyard from the wheel effects and you want one back, you maybe get rid of a treasure token or you get rid of one of your mana rocks to get it back with Goblin Welder. And you can obviously use this for your opponent. If they have something in their graveyard that's useless, something on the field that's good, you can do the whole switcheroo. And now, Squee is a character everyone loves. He constantly is coming back from the dead. In the story, he's actually blessed with immortality until recently. He gave up his immortality to help save his friends, which is nice. But these two cards are when he had his immortality. So you got Squee, Goblin, Nabob. It's a 2 generic, 1 red, legendary creature goblin. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return Squee from your graveyard to your hand. It's a 1/1. Obviously, that's perfect. You discard it, and then your upkeep, you bring it back. You discard it. You keep so you're not losing really any cards, and it triggers your commander every time you do it. Then you got Squee the Immortal. It's a 1 generic, 2 red legendary creature goblin. You may cast Squee from your graveyard or from exile. So obviously, casting it from the graveyard would trigger our commander, and we will be discarding this. Squees are the first thing you discard, of course, so it'll be discard fodder as well. And now, one way this deck is actually really, really, really powerful is it has a lot of graveyard exiling effects. And graveyards are really used a lot in Commander. So that's almost like just nerfing a lot of decks. For example, we got Relic of Progenitus and Ghost Vacuum. The Relic is a 1 generic artifact. Tap it. Target player exiles a card from his or her graveyard. You can pay 1, tap it. Pay 1, exile it. Exile all cards from all graveyards. Draw a card. Now, this, you could target your own stuff, of course, to trigger your commander's ability, or you can target your opponent's stuff. And if it's useless, someone has like a rest in peace, you can at least sacrifice it to draw a card. And then you got Ghost Vacuum. It's a 1 generic artifact. You can tap it, exile target card from a graveyard. You can pay 6, tap it, sacrifice it. Put each creature card exile with Ghost Vacuum onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types, activated as a sorcery. So, just like the Relic, this can target your stuff to remove to trigger your commander, or it can be graveyard hate for your opponent. And obviously, you're doing a lot of damage with your commander, and giving it lifelink means you will gain that much life, increasing the swing deficit for life points. One of my favorites is Butcher's Cleaver in this. It's 3 generic artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+0. Then, as long as the equipped creature is human, it has lifelink and equips for 3. So, Obviously, your commander, despite what he wants to be, he is a human. So that works perfectly. Then you got Shadow Spirit. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves it. No one loves the price. It's a one generic legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. You can pay one. Permanents you control, your opponents control, lose hexproof and indestructible. So it's your opponents, their stuff, lose hexproof and indestructible, which can be beneficial because you have like blasphemous act and stuff. People are always using protection to save their stuff. Now, obviously, you're doing damage. Red is great at doing double damage, triple damage. Fire Emancipation literally does triple damage to your opponent as an enchantment. Then you got Uncivil Unrest. It's a 4 generic, 1 red enchantment. Non token creatures you control have Riot, so they either enter with haste or a +1/+1 counter. Then, if a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter deals damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that. So it's basically doubling your commander's trigger, and it's +1/+1 theme, which there's not a lot in red, which is another reason I like this deck. Then you got Sulfum Mayhem Dominus. It's a 2 generic, 2 red legendary creature, Phyrexian Horror. It doubles damage of non-combat damage, and then you can pay 3, discard 2 cards, put an indestructible counter on it, and it's a 5/4. And that's good because we want to discard our cards sometimes to get them into the graveyard. And like I said, you're going to be exiling your graveyard, you're going to be exiling your opponent's graveyard a lot. There's so many exiles going on, which is perfect for a card like Oblivion Sower, which is a 6 generic creature Eldrazi. When you cast this spell, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of their library. Then you may put any number of land cards that player owns from exile onto the battlefield in your control. So hopefully you exile a lot of cards in the graveyard, all their fetch lands, all that stuff, and then bring it back with Oblivion Sower, which will obviously be a huge advantage to you. And that's the gist of the deck. You're playing around with your graveyard, dumping things into it, then removing them, dumping things into it, then removing them, and then benefiting from that, doing damage, hopefully gaining some life by giving your commander lifelink, hopefully doubling your damage. And that is essentially the gist.